So 5 weeks to go. Most of the time, I don't rehearse my videos necessarily, but I'll have an outline of what I want to talk about because I only have 10 minutes to do it, so I have to make sure I have enough time for each thing. And this one, I didn't really think about what I'm going to talk about at all. This is a video about just my overall thoughts on the film. There's 5 weeks to go. I've been doing these videos for almost a year now. In a couple weeks, it'll be my 1-year anniversary. And so after almost a year doing this, what do I think? And there are definitely more controversial issues on Prince Caspian than there was with Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, there was kind of the melting river and the battle and that line from Father Christmas and the wardrobe entrances and kind of comparatively little things. They kind of felt big at the time, but when you look at what's happening with Prince Caspian, doesn't really seem like there are any really big changes in Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe compared to that. But my thought on Prince Caspian is there's no doubt that there are going to be some really annoying changes in the film. There are going to be some things that drive me crazy, that make me cringe. There's no doubt about that. But I still find myself feeling, if anything, I think I feel better about this movie than The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Even though there's so many more reasons. It's also my least favorite Narnia book, so there's a lot of reasons to believe it's not going to be great. But there are so many little things, and I've mentioned them in the past, that make me think they really seem to understand what this is about. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe taught me a lot about what a good adaptation is. Because I don't think Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was a great adaptation. But I think Lord of the Rings was a wonderful adaptation. And yet, Lord of the Rings made so many more changes to the story, to the literal story, than Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe did. If you make a list of the changes they made, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, they really didn't make any really big changes. And as far as the story goes, and Lord of the Rings, they made a lot. And yet, I walk out of the Lord of the Rings movie smiling, and I walk out of Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe kind of wishing for more. But that taught me something, that it's not as simple as just try to follow the book as closely as you can, and there you go, it's a good adaptation. It's not as simple as that. You've got to understand what the book is really about. You've got to Lord of the Rings, although they made so many changes, they captured what Lord of the Rings is about, what makes Lord of the Rings what it is. And I think that if you haven't read the book and you go see Lord of the Rings, either way, I would still recommend you go read the book. But I think a non-reader is going to get the right impression. Obviously, there's a wealth of detail they're missing out on, and they're missing out on a lot if they don't read the book. But I think a non-reader would get the right impression from watching the movies about why Lord of the Rings is a popular series, why it's such a great book. And I don't think that people going to see the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe movie would get that impression. I think that Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe movie tried to do it overly realistic, and and they try to flesh out all the characters and everything. And I love the simplicity of Narnia. To me, the thing that makes Narnia so brilliant, the books, is that Lewis does so much with so little. Tolkien, sure, Lord of the Rings is a fantastic book and has these deep, complex stories and these deep, powerful themes, and I love it. But I feel like Lewis did things that were just as powerful, but he did it in 250 words per book. He didn't do it in a 1,000-page big long book like Tolkien did, which I'm not discounting Tolkien at all or Lewis or anything. I'm just saying that's what I think makes Narnia so incredible. These are these really interesting themes, and yet it's in these little fairy tales. And I always love, so I think it's a mistake to flesh out, and I think they're doing that in Prince Caspian as with Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. They're fleshing out the characters too much. A movie that I compare the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe book to a lot is Pan's Labyrinth. It's directed by Guillermo del Toro, I think that's how you say his name. He's going to direct The Hobbit. And his religious view, he was supposedly in talks to direct Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and declined because of his religious views, which is unfortunate because aside from that, I think he would have been the perfect choice. You watch Pan's Labyrinth, and it has this wonderful fairy tale simplicity about it, and yet, as the director says, it's one of my favorite quotes. Just because a character is simple or a type does not mean they can't have an emotional reality. And he's also talking about the most difficult thing to achieve in art is actually simplicity. I agree with that so much. I think that Narnia has this wonderful simplicity about the books, and yet there's so much going on underneath. And so every time I go back, I get more and more out of it, even though there's these simple fairy tale stories. But where were we? What makes a good adaptation? I think that they're definitely going to make more changes to the Prince Caspian story. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Prince Caspian's a less cinematic book. But there's so many little things in here, little scenes I've seen, and the overall look of the feel of what I've seen that makes me think, you know, they just seem to understand more what Prince Caspian's about. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, very faithful to the literal story, but it just didn't feel like Narnia to me. It didn't have that wonderful fairy tale simplicity that the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe had, and it just wasn't as mystical. You know, it felt too. I don't know exactly what the problem is, but there's a lot. It's not that, you know, I kind of found myself asking after seeing Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, what's missing? I don't understand. Like, they were so faithful to the literal story. What's missing from this? And it just, in the end, it just didn't capture what it is that makes Narnia so great. And to me, it's that wonderful simplicity. And but the main themes of Prince Caspian, of return, the myth becoming fact, faith, I see being very strong in the movie, based on what I've seen. Yeah, there are going to be some annoying changes, but there's enough reason for. I think I'm just getting the sense that, like, that they really understand more what Prince Caspian's about, as far as the themes goes. I think that, and this might be the right approach. Prince Caspian is my least favorite Narnia book, and it's also probably the least cinematic in the series, arguably. It's certainly down there as far as just the whole multiple storylines things. The way it's told in the book, I think it works fine in the book, but in a movie it could be a mess. And so I think they're essentially, they're keeping the characters in the basic story, the basic plot points, but they're kind of doing their own thing with it. They're going to make a cinematic version that has these characters, some of the main plot points, but in a more cinematic way that honors the themes that are important to the book. And with a book like Prince Caspian, where it's so uncinematic, I think that's probably the right approach, is to just take the themes, take the important characters, and that's generally the right approach, I guess. But Prince Caspian, they almost just kind of have to totally do their own thing with it, staying true to what's really important to the book. And even though there's definitely going to be some annoying changes, I have this feeling in my gut that Prince Caspian, I'm going to walk away feeling happier about Prince Caspian. Maybe it's because my expectations are going to be a little lower in a sense, because, I mean, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix is my least favorite Harry Potter book, but it's my favorite movie. Maybe it's just because, like, I'm not expecting as much. I'm not wanting to get as much out of it because it's my least favorite book, so maybe that's one of the reasons. But, so my overall thoughts are, yeah, there's going to be some annoying, nitpicky things, but the impression I'm getting is that it's going to be more faithful to the spirit and the themes of the book than Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was. And with 5 weeks to go, I think I'm gonna walk out of the theater for Prince Caspian feeling better than I did for Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Ultimately, I think the books, I still don't think it can be as good as the book, and that the books are just, it's almost like the books are so simple, no movie could replicate that, because it just as soon as you see a visual, it kind of becomes less simple to me. So that this makes Narnia so brilliant, it can't really be replicated. But so I am expecting to walk out of the theater happier with Prince Caspian than with Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And you know, it's one thing to say this, but you know, I can talk about, oh, I'm gonna like this, I'm not gonna like this, but in the end, you see it and you're gonna like it or you're not. So, with 5 weeks to go, those are my overall thoughts on the Prince Caspian film, and I'm looking to get advance ticket pretty soon. And it's just insane to think that I've come this far with the film. And so 5 weeks to go, further up and further in.